So y'all have to forgive me. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm pretty well whizzy-wheeled up here, sporting my rest in peace drummer koozie that's done been and fallen apart. I'm probably going to catch a lot of backlash for this one just because I'm actually not going to play my guitar. But I've been playing guitar. I've been playing it a little bit. I'm a mechanic by trade. A lot of people don't know that. This will be going directly on my channel. But I have been playing, keeping up with it a little bit. It's just been kind of hard since my drummer died. I've taken close to about a year and a half hiatus, but I still play the same old. Pitched harmonics, natural harmonics, chords. I'm still doing alright, but being a mechanic by trade, my hands get pretty screwed up, my arms do too. So that's one of the biggest reasons I've been kind of taking a break from it is I've been, believe it or not, with this virus stuff, I've actually been more busy. But there's a guy that I subscribe to who posted a video that said, "Where were you on September 11th, 2001?" Just asking the subscribers to, give a little story of their own. I felt like this was a good time for me particularly to speak up because I do have a pretty good story. I turned 30 in March. So I was born in 1990, March 21st. And when I was 11 years old, I was actually very fortunate to go on 3 vacations that year. My parents have always been really good to me, they've spoiled me, here and there, especially when I was younger. But, they gave me the work ethic that I also have, and I work my ass off. But, even my first car was earned. I had to pay for half of it, and then after I paid half and he paid half, I had to pay him back and the remainder of the full amount. So, they've instilled good values in me. Even though, they took me places, we traveled, and that's something that I don't do anymore, like at all, just because all I do is work all the time. So we went to Myrtle Beach in April that year, which would have been 2 weeks was the vacation back then. Nowadays, they've switched schools over to having like 1 week in February and 1 week in April to kind of, release the strain, which I don't know. It's been so long since I've been to school, I don't even remember what it's like. But that was a cool vacation. We went down there. I had a little plastic rake that I got from some stupid souvenir stand, and I dragged a jellyfish onto the beach with it. I was always fucking with nature and fucking with people. Unintentionally, I was a really good kid. I got good grades, and I didn't really swear like I do now. And the second vacation I went on that year was to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And that one would have been around the June, July time. We went back down and went there. And I think we rode down in a 2000 or 99 Pontiac Sunfire. Oh my God, right? Those were new once upon a time. And we took one of my mom's friends with us. And, that was a good, fun trip. I can still remember most of the clothes I was wearing. I don't know why. That year in particular just sticks with me. And then, coming into the following school year, I was going into 6th grade, so I was transitioning into the middle school, and it was going to be a new thing for me. So, a buddy of mine and his parents, this kid's parents had money. They were like, "Oh, we're going to New York City. You should come with us. We got the extra money. Your parents don't even have to put anything in," which I'm pretty sure my parents ended up giving them money for food for me, for the long haul that we were there. And we went, it was just the first week of September. So I'm pretty sure, even being 11 years old then, and now I'm 30, being that long of a time frame, and I'm not looking at a calendar right now, I almost want to say that Saturday was the 8th, just by guess. and I'm not even thinking of the date itself that it happened. And there was weird, there's weird issues going on with the power. People kind of ended up in places. We ended up in places we, shouldn't have been. But that was the end of our tour. Was the South Tower of the World Trade Center. The beginning of our tour was obviously staying at some hotels. Traveled all over the city. We went to Yankee Stadium. Evan and I were obsessed with the Yankees. The Rochester Red Wings. I live on the west side of New York State, so we've always kind of had our own little deals, and I haven't watched sports in a long time, so that's kind of ironic too. So we went, to Yankee Stadium, the Empire State Building. We went to see a whole bunch of things that were, cool to see. And of course, being a young kid, I really didn't pay attention a whole lot. And yes, I'm going to light this. I've actually cut down quite a bit, but I'm still smoking. I'm a mechanic by nature and by trade, so we do this kind of thing. The moral to the beginning of this story is that I was very hesitant, especially being, a country-raised individual, and I am from boondocks, middle of fucking nowhere. Most hillbillies make good mechanics, but I was petrified of the city for one, and I was petrified of heights. And to this day, I'm still petrified of airplanes. So we were there on the 8th. We went to the observation deck. We went to the roof, the 107th floor, all the way up to the top of the roof. The normal routine that you go on. I mean, it was rather early in the morning. And it was an amazing experience. And it's kind of vague to me now to remember exactly, what I saw, but I can still remember looking down off that thing. And even driving away from the city and looking at the skyline, the view was amazing. So that was, my trip to there with my buddy. And after that, I think we cut it a day short because we had to make it back to town to go to school on Tuesday. I think we were going to stay an extra day, but then my parents weren't having it. I want to say that's how that went. So we get back. I'm transitioning into the 6th grade. This is a whole new deal to me. And I mean, it was so different. We went from having one teacher to having multiple teachers throughout the day with different classes, different periods. That was a big transition for me back then. I was really nervous about that. I remember that. And the first class of the day was choir with a teacher that everybody said was like the biggest bitch ever. And she really wasn't. Like, she could be, but she knew that people had talents, especially with their voices and their vocals and what have you. So that's whose class I was in when I heard that happened. It was right at the end of her block, her period, because it was at 8:46 the first plane hit, so 8:55 the class would have rang out. So the TV came on when we were in her room. And then the next class I went to, I think, was either Mrs. Joy or Mrs. Schmidt. I know I had 4 classes that day before they finally sent us home, and it was Mrs. Joy, Mrs. Schmidt, Mrs. Pease, and Mrs. Balin for choir. And we just watched everything unfold, and I couldn't believe it. Like, neither of us. I was in 6th grade, and I think Evan was in 4th or 5th grade, so we were in different schools on the other opposite sides of town, so we couldn't talk to each other or anything. We didn't have cell phones or anything. And it was just really weird to watch it on TV and come to the realization, and it's taken me a long time, still it fucks with me, that I was there and then that happened. And I was petrified of the buildings. I don't like heights. I've never naturally liked heights. I don't really like big bodies of water either. And airplanes since that day have petrified me. And that was the last time I went there. I've never gone back since. So I kind of keep that picture in my head of that skyline that I saw out the back window of their SUV when we were taking off out of there. I remember a happy Skyline. I don't really care for the one that they've got now. So I sat through 4 classes that morning. And of course, back then, it seemed like it took an eternity for that series of events to happen in my situation. And then all these years later, to come to the realization that it all happened in a matter of 102 minutes. Like, it didn't take long at all. All the senseless violence that happened that day, the end of innocence, honestly. I mean, even being up to an 11-year-old kid, I had a pretty good mentality and I had really good grades. I was actually really smart, so I was very observant. And I know with all the hectic things that happened that day, it was really hard to kind of recall, exactly where I was at and exactly, what was going through my brain, because I think it's hard for everybody. I think everybody's mind was kind of clouded that day. And I don't really think we've all been the same since that day. I don't really think anybody's been the same since that day that, lived through it. And to be 11 years old, I mean, we had the ultimate freedom. When I was a child, I was all over hell on my bicycle and my skateboard when I was 5, 6 years old. We didn't have cell phones. We had the streetlights to tell us to be home. And our parents let us do a lot, but we didn't go messing around or screwing off or anything. And to be honest with you, I feel like the racism has kind of come out of society more in the modern years, because back then nobody even mentioned it. It wasn't even a thing that you mentioned. We all loved each other and we all cared for each other, and even coming from a small town like this, which is maybe 5,000 to 8,000 people now, we had our own minorities and nobody mentioned it. Nobody talked about it. It wasn't a thing that needed to be mentioned. So it seems like this has all come out more in recent days. And I feel like that series of events has unfortunately left the world in the shape that it's in. I don't think anything's been the same since September 11th, 2001. It wasn't until later in life I started having dreams about it. Observations I made that day, people I saw, things along those lines. Like, they would just kind of flash like a montage in my head. And I mean, there'd be music playing and I didn't even know what the music was. Like, it's just really weird and really surreal. It's almost like my own little PTSD from it. Just because I was so petrified of these buildings, but then I remember being up there and looking down and just, man, what a view. What a view. What a view. What a feeling to look down. And I mean, we were above helicopters. We were above some small planes that were flying the banners behind them back when that was popular. Oh, man. It's so crazy how times have changed. And don't even get me started on how fucking vehicles suck nowadays. Vehicles are fucking junk. I'll make a note about that. Anything that's gear driven or push rod timing chain driven, that's good. Anything overhead cam, junk, which is everything now. But that's a side note. I wanted to make this video kind of responding to him. Where was I at on September 11th, 2001? So that's the answer. Is I was in middle school 3 days after I had just been there with my friend and his parents. And it was surreal. It was surreal. I went to the Big Apple. It was the first time I'd ever been there. And to come back to town and have that happen. Just unbelievable. And since that day, I mean, everybody on my channel knows I make music and that I like write songs and stuff. And I really haven't been at it so much. And I'd like to kind of find a bit of ambition somewhere. It's been so long since I've been able to sit down and write. I feel like September 11th would be a good, inspiration for something, but I haven't really found anything within myself yet. It's just, you know, hard when you're staying as busy as you are, especially with your real life and your job and things along that lines. I'll put that stinky fucker out for you haters. But, yeah, that's the gist of it. So, I don't know. If you want to post in the comments and do a video reply on where you were at on September 11th, 2001, and maybe your story, maybe you share something similar. I think we only had one kid in my entire school, and he was in my grade. I think his uncle perished in the accident, you know, the act of terrorists, whatever you want to call it. I know it's a real delicate matter. It still is to this day. And as far as I know, nobody's been convicted to this day. I'm kind of disappointed in that, too. But, yeah, it left an impact on all of us. And unfortunately, it's defined what our lives have become. So, yeah, let me know in the comments, you know, where you were at on September 11th, 2001, or what story you may have. And if it's too long, go ahead and make a video, post a link in the comments. I'm going to take my video, I'm going to upload it, and I'm going to post it on his page. He's probably going to get irritated because there's a whole lot of rambling and bullshitting. It's hard for me to think about. It used to be easy for me to talk about until I started having dreams about it. And then when I started having dreams about it, it kind of started fucking with me a little bit. You know, pardon my French, I swear a lot, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But the information age has brought us a long way. And my dumb ass decided to start getting on the internet and looking up, you know, memorials and pictures. And before you know it, I was Googling names and checking stuff out. And then I was having these dreams, and I was seeing some of these people's faces in my dreams. And it was people that I'd remembered and that I'd seen that day. So, yeah. September 11th, 2001. One of the shittiest days in our history as a nation. But a reminder that even in the toughest of times, we all came together. It sucks that society nowadays has to hide in safe places because words hurt them, and everybody's just a fucking princess. I'm 30 years old and I sound like a boomer. But you know, that's okay. Boomer engineering worked, and boomer ideals worked for the longest time. And there's not very many of us old school crowd left. So, that being said, I'm going to part ways. I'm going to reload. So, let me know what you think. Have a good one, guys.